Okay. Hi there, this is Forrest, and this is a video recap of the first session of Astrology 101, 8 weeks to astro-literacy. So what did we talk about in the first class? Well, we started with what is astrology and what is it not. There are many preconceived notions about astrology, and the common perception is that it's a system to identify and categorize 12 basic personality types and a way to predict events for each type. The reality is it's not at all about personality type, and the idea that there could only be 12 is kind of preposterous. We can make really accurate predictions, but they have nothing to do with typing. It's a language not of character traits, but of tasks and functions that we are all trying as human beings to develop and refine within ourselves. So let's look at some examples. For example, the Leo stereotype that we hear about all the time is very noun and adjective heavy, and it might sound something like this. Extroverted drama queen or king who needs to be the center of attention all the time. A more accurate description is going to be much more verb and adverb heavy. It's about developing a sense of identity and the means to authentically express that identity, to stand for something, and to cultivate a sense of personal integrity in a social and interpersonal context. That's a lot more useful. Let's look at Gemini, same way. All right, the stereotype, very noun and adjective heavy. Talkative social butterfly who debates and rationalizes everything, asks a million questions, and starts talking again before you get the chance to answer. You may know people like that, but it has less to do with Gemini and more to do with probably who you're talking to. So what's a more accurate perspective on Gemini? It's going to be verb and adverb heavy. Developing the capacity for clear, accurate perceptions and the ability to gather, process, and transmit data. Much more helpful. So the essential distinction here is that it's not about labels. It's about processes, a means of personal development. And another thing you may not know about astrology is that all people have all signs, not just one. In other words, every person has the capacity to develop a sense of identity or an intellectual capacity or their maturity and self-discipline, their ability to form human relationships or to cultivate courage and fortitude, and so on and so on. So why do we say, I'm an Aries, she's an Aquarius, he's a Scorpio at all? Because the sun at the time of each person's birth was in that particular sign. So what are signs? Well, signs are not constellations. They're sections of the sky that were named for constellations that were once visible within those spaces a few thousand years ago. The precession of the equinoxes is the movement of those constellations past those visual positions. A sign is a 30-degree section or 1/12 of the 360 degrees of sky that we observe from the Earth's perspective or from a geocentric perspective revolving around us. Again, we realize that they're not actually revolving around us. Now, the sun appears to pass through those 12 signs over the course of each year. Astrologically speaking, the sun's position points to a predominant task or process of development for a person who was born while it was passing through a given sign. It's not unlike choosing a major in school or prioritizing an item on your to-do list. It's not the only thing you're responsible for doing, but it's more important than most to you. Now, birth charts. At first glance, really scary and intimidating, so let's just get over that right now. Right? That's my chart, by the way, in case you're fluent in astrologies. Okay. Now, how do we make sense of that kind of a mess? Well, we break it down into simpler parts. What is it exactly? It's a stylized drawing of the sky, both the visible sky and the invisible sky, at the moment and the location of a person's birth. The horizon, this line right here, bisects the chart along the horizontal center. All objects, planets, sun, moon, are located either above or below that line. One easy way to approach the chart without knowing much about astrology at all is to notice how much material, how much of that celestial substance is above the line, indicating that this person executes much of his development in an outward, observable, worldly action kind of way. Or is most of the substance below the horizon line, indicating that this person executes much of his development in an inward, cerebral, private way. Bear in mind that the latter chart shows just as much potential for measurable worldly success as the first one does. It's just less essential to his or her personal development. Also, you want to find the sun's position in a chart. Okay. If it's above or below the horizon line, the answer can help us determine its relative importance in the chart. Just like a student might have a double major, a chart that shows the sun below the horizon line tells us right away that we need to consider the moon with as much gravity or relevance to the chart as the sun. If it's above the horizon line, that's a single major kind of person. Now, we've been talking a lot about the sun and the moon already, so let's get into the first layer of language, the planets. Again, we know that the sun and moon are not planets, but we use that term as a catch-all in astrology. So, each planet is a symbol of a particular aspect of human behavior. It's a human function. And the sign and the house in which each planet resides will tell us more about the strategies, motivations, opportunities, and challenges that will color each of these functions. But for now, let's just look at them in their raw form. So, starting with the sun. Looks like this in the chart. And it symbolizes the essential sense of self and the formation of a functional identity in the world, the cultivation of a healthy, hopefully, ego, an awareness of one's own presence within and impact on one's circumstances. It's a sense of being alive, vital, and real. So we can see why that would be a big deal. Next in line is the moon. Looks like this in the chart. They were up all night coming up with that symbol, right? So it symbolizes a deep fundamental sense of whether or not you're well, safe, and at peace. It's the cultivation of a solid, supportive, emotional foundation. The primal, intuitive knowing that we experience on a subconscious and non-rational level. Now, the moon is kind of like the core of the apple, and the sun is kind of like the apple's flesh. So what would be the outer layer of that apple? What would be like the skin of it? Well, that's called the ascendant. And in a chart, the ascendant is over here on the left-hand side, right at the edge of that dividing line of the horizon. So what does the ascendant or the rising sign actually do in the chart? Well, it tells us how this person is developing his or her capacity to make a first impression, to initiate action, and to interface with the world. We'll learn more about the signs later on in the course, and that'll help us understand the function of the ascendant. And then the last character that we addressed in the language of planets was Mercury. Mercury is the symbol of the intellectual and communicative function. It's the lens through which we gather data from our surroundings, from our experiences, from other people, and the capacity to think and to translate thought into language. And that's as far as we got on Sunday. So if you are interested in joining us and you haven't started yet, we will be meeting this Sunday, the 8th, at 2 o'clock, running from 2 to 4 in North Hollywood, California at the Green Man Store. And if you're interested, go ahead and give those guys a call at 818-985-2010. And the accompanying text for this course is The Inner Sky by Stephen Forrest. You might want to pick up a copy of that. And that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I hope it was helpful. See you soon.